Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive. We are getting the Maryland Crab Cake Tour back out on the road. I have the Back to the Future scratch offs. We're going to have these on Thursday at Greenmount Station in Hampstead. I always love coming up there. They have a delicious crab cake. The ball game's on. I was trying to do this around the Mariners game on Thursday. Did not know the Orioles would be in last place when I booked this back in April. We're going to be at Fadley's next Friday. The Orioles will still be in last place next Friday as well. And the Angels of Anaheim, of LA, of Orange County, of California will be joining us next Friday. They had a lot of different names. This guy has only had one name, but he's had a couple of residences. With the Father's Day thing coming up, and I feel bad I didn't promote Eisenberg's books for Father's Day, and I've had other
Right.
authors on this week talking baseball, and even Rick Vaughn I had last week's written a book on St. Petersburg baseball. But this guy is an author. He was a friend of Tom Matte. He has lived in Tampa as a sports writer for many, many years. He chronicles Orioles spring training and is still very much up on watching the Orioles. He is a Baltimore positive listener, contributor from time to time out on my socials. Joel Poiley joins us now from All Things South. And dude, my wife's been in South Florida for like the last 2 weeks with her family. She is down in the Sarasota area. I mean, it's been 90 there. It's been 50 here. It's been like November here. And finally,
Right.
we get sunshine, and the Orioles are playing in the middle of the night, and they're in last place. I mean, this is. It's disappointing to us here in Baltimore, but you're sort of a displaced Oriole fan. You're kind of hitting me once a week, really bummed out about all this too, right?
Right. And, knowing I was coming on, I made all these notes about things I wanted to touch on. It is such a mess. Look, even though they won those three games this weekend, they could have easily lost all three. They're still not playing that well. The pitching's a little better. Um, I don't know which direction you want to go in. I mean, we can start with Elias and kind of look at
I'm a
big.
slave to my guest, Joel. You know this. You want to do Tom Matte? I'll do whatever you want, man.
All right. Well, let's start with the book. Let's get that out of the way. It's selling really well, but as you know, if you're going to make any money on a book, I mean, I wrote it as a passion project, but now that it's out, you're in the marketing phase, you want to make a few coins. If you don't get into the thousands with books, and I'm sure other authors have told you this, because of the percentages that you make on the book and being that they're so small, you really don't make a lot, but it's doing well. I guess I'm in the upper hundreds, 700 books,
You
something
write
like
it
that.
for people to read it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
like mine was done. They're both online. If anybody wants to go read Purple Rain 1 or 2, they're there.
yeah,
If they have a copy, I'll sign it. If I haven't already, I see them on eBay sometimes for 20 bucks.
right,
And all I've ever wanted, as I sat there and slaved in doing it twice in my life for
right,
printed books, is for people to consume it. That's all. Same
right,
reason I sit here and I make this every day, because I feel like the history of the Orioles, the history of the Ravens, the
right.
history of Tom Matte and the Baltimore Colts, the history of our city really is
Mhm,
up to the storytellers. And when we lose someone like Jim Henneman, which we
right.
did last week, which spurred you to write to me, you wrote to me because we lost Jim Henneman, right? Like literally
Yeah,
sort of a North Star guiding light of authors and writers, because all of us in this sports space, it's not just we consume each other's stuff, it's we've
right.
lived the same history and we've all viewed it through different prisms, I think.
We definitely have. I mean, I didn't know Henny, and I almost hesitate to use Henny, because I really didn't know him. But when I was covering the O's for the Carroll County Times in '85 and '86, he was always there, and you always heard that booming voice in the background in the press box. But I read him for years, and like I messaged to you, I loved his notes columns, and you learned a lot from people like that, and you held them in regard, with all the great writers I grew up with, Alan Goldstein, Phil, Jackman, Hatter, all those
Throw
guys.
Bob Mazel in there because Michael
Yeah.
Olesker brought his name up at Jim Henneman's funeral last week too, and
How
just
was
keeping
that?
names alive. Well, the Henneman funeral was an amazing baseball tribute to
Yeah.
him. And everything was kind of orange, right? And like his
Yeah.
life in the Orioles, and that crazy Louis Aparicio picture from 1963 where he was the bat boy, and
Right.
and it was the no one had a definitive answer about it other than Bill Stecca knew a little bit
Mhm.
about it. Vaughn knew a little bit about it. And then
Right.
I found that Baltimore Magazine story from like 3 years ago, and I shared that. Jim had
Yeah.
written at length about it, but at Henneman's thing, and this is such a beautiful tribute to John Stedman to
Right.
some degree. Um, and I reached to Ernie Accorsi this week, who consumed me at Stedman's funeral and fathered me. Ernie Accorsi led a very broken 28-year-old version of Nestor out the side door at the funeral home down on York Road to
Really.
console me. So some of these funerals, I mean, I went into the room where Jim Henneman was. It's where Vicky Brick was 6 weeks ago, and it just broke my heart again.
Yeah.
Because it's just like that. Henneman's was a real celebration of his life in baseball and
Good.
people talking baseball and thinking baseball. Jim Palmer's in the room and Tom Davis, just who's who. It was everybody was there, right? But
Mhm.
more than that, that crazy Louis Aparicio picture that we all sort of gathered around and we looked at, and nobody could really identify, and Kirchin didn't know much about it, and Schmuck
Right.
didn't know anything about it. Like literally, Craig Heist. I mean, I was gathering people.
Mhm.
And I'm Googling trying to figure out what it is because we're all baseball heads. We're looking at a picture. We're seeing bunting. We're seeing the stadium. We're seeing Louis. We're seeing all this stuff.
Right.
And Henneman was the bat boy. And I said, Stedman had to have been behind this at the news post because Stedman was a carny. And,
Yeah.
and sure enough, John Stedman put him up to it and said, write
Mhm.
a story, be a great angle. You get to be a bat boy for a day. It's an angle.
Right.
And as it turned out that he was a childhood friend of Barber, who said to him, everything's off the record here today. You can't be talking about this. And
Mhm.
Henneman was the bat boy in front of John Kennedy. So I mean the
Yeah.
rich tapestry, and you ask like what Henneman's funeral, just these incredible stories of a life well lived in and around the
Mhm.
Orioles in baseball and the press box being named after him in Camden Yards. And I had
Right.
Charlie Steinberg on last week talking about him sobbing in 1991. And that 91 day at Memorial Stadium, for any of us that were of that age, that is as memorable as winning a World Series, really, that last day in 91. That's how rich
Yeah.
the franchise is. And then they're in last place, and it becomes a whole lot more fun to talk about Earl Weaver, honestly.
Yeah, and it hurts, and like you said, the last 30 years, I mean, the Buck years were almost like a blip in the highway. It's been a struggle, and you know, I'm watching what's happened this year, and I've been following the Orioles in baseball since '64. I can't think of a team that has fallen this far, this fast, that was expected to do this well. And you try and examine it from all these angles, and I mean, you can start so many different places, but I'll just start with like every bad team, and I think you mentioned this last week, they invent new ways to lose. I mean, even in yesterday's game, remember that play where Carlson makes that sliding catch, and then they have the guy dead to rights at first on the other end of it, whether he didn't see the runner coming because he was sliding, but he lobs the throw in to Jackson, who drops the throw, even though it wasn't a good throw. And you hear Palmer, and I'm listening to the highlights, you hear Palmer sighing, like, oh no. And it's like, even in a good play, they do something wrong. And Hyde took the fall for Elias's off season, but they came into the season, they weren't sharp, but I'm trying to give Elias a little bit of leeway because some of the guys he's brought in have worked. Carlson's a player. Laureano was helping out, but he didn't obviously expect Eflin to be out pretty much the first 2 months. Grayrod, unfortunately, and I know I'm just spitballing here, but Grayrod to me is becoming Hunter Harvey 2.0. Great arm, great potential. His body can't stand the rigors of a major league season, of a major league life. Can you count on the guy for 30 starts a year? I don't think so. I mean, he's probably not going to be back, if at all, until August. And obviously, I don't have any inside info. Yeah, I'm glad they won, but they played a horrible team that if they could hit with runners in scoring position, because believe it or not, they were worse than the O's, they could have won all 3 games just like the O's did. So let's see what happens. I mean, they go to Seattle, and the big difference there is, and I know Luke has mentioned this, they have a hitting coach that knows what he's doing. It's easy to blame these hitting coaches, but one thing I'm seeing with Elias, by bringing somebody like John Mabry in, not that he's the end all, he is looking at the whole picture. He's realizing that maybe their philosophy is the problem. And, we can go into Adley and all that, but
Well, I mean, the Rutschman thing, like trying to
that,
define what that is. Last year
yeah,
it was the foul tip, and maybe
the
he's
back
hurt, maybe he's not
spasms.
right, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's very very difficult to play any professional sport at 85 or
Oh,
90%
yeah.
when
Yeah.
everybody else is at 100, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And the mental part of that, being a catcher, being a 1-1, it's starting to feel like it's getting heavy, the
Right.
losing part. But man, just the body language of what that kid looked like 3 years ago. And I don't know, fake hustle, whatever, Luke has referred to different things. And,
Right.
but it just, all the mojo, and you mentioned the fall guy and being Brandon Hyde and all of this. I, I don't know how they could have sustained the injuries, and had they spent
Right.
$1 billion on pitching, maybe
Right.
they'd be more in it. But Kowser, Westberg, Henderson didn't begin the season healthy. Rutschman, I don't know what this is. And
Yeah.
Jackson Holiday maturing, great. O'Hearn. I mean, you can have a
Right.
couple of players that are going to be all-star caliber, but
Right.
if they're going to win, the pitching's just not good enough, and we really did the. I had Dave Shining on at Pizza John's back in March before the season began.
Yeah.
We had Viviano at Fadley's. We were talking pitching and all that. We were all a little concerned about the pitching, but
Right.
not like last place 15 games under 500. That's a confluence of a lot of really bad things
Right.
that's happened on the field and mistake all along. I mean, runners in scoring position, batting average, left-handed can't hit left-handers. I mean, just go down the list of
Yeah.
all of this that makes a last place team. But you have a general manager that wasn't even hired by this owner. You had an owner
Right.
that thought he had something he doesn't have. You have a manager now that's been fired. You have an interim manager.
Right.
This is Joel. By the way, Joel Poiley's our guest. He's down in Tampa. He's an author, but from Baltimore, and we'll get to the Tom Maddie book and all that. But longtime sports writer. I look at this and say, what can I measurably look at the Rubenstein thing? And we'll get to his bobblehead and all of that, because you were in Tampa for lousy ownership forever and ever and ever. And I talked to Rick Vaughn about that last week.
Right.
What's good? I mean, like, you're in Tampa as a fan, as a reform media guy, and like baseball head. You
Right.
look at this, and I'm like, Jackson Holiday's good. I'll give you that.
Right.
Henderson, okay. What if I'm an owner? What else do a Camden Yards? We're getting $600 million, and we're going to figure out a way to make our own little
Right.
bird head thing and throw all the media out into left
Right.
field and start to charge 12 grand to sit behind home plate. I'm looking at this and saying, what? They stream now, which is good for guys in Florida that want to get it for $12 a month, right?
Right. 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 I mean, let's take a step back here. The injuries confound me in the sense, and every team has them. And yeah, the Dodgers can overcome it because of the money. I mean, they literally have 2 starting pitching staffs that they can draw on, 2 7-man staffs, because they have all the money to do that. But they have 14 pitchers, I think, on the IL right now. You can't account for the injuries. But what I don't understand, Ness, is these guys don't work during the off season. They have personal trainers, personal chefs. The first time Gunnar goes up for a line drive, February 27th, he strains the intercostal, whatever the hell that, it's like they can't stay
Isn't
healthy.
that the bridge between St. Pete and? No, I'm sorry.
I know you're joking, but it's like, is it the trainers? I mean, everybody's coming under scrutiny here, and it's uh, Charlie Morton, 41 years old. He's thrown a million curveballs in his career, and all of a sudden he develops Steve Blast disease and doesn't know how to throw a curveball. I'm glad he's found it, but he's as big a reason they're in this mess right now as anything.
But you were asking Charlie Morton to be Corbin Burns, man. You
And look at
know?
Burns. Burns is now probably looking at potential Tommy John. You saw that. Pulls himself out of a game the other day with tightness in the elbow. So then you're saying, all right, maybe Elias kind of knew what he was doing, not spending. But then, and again, I'm from afar, but I follow it.
Elias did not know what he was doing. They're in last place. So we
Okay,
can't, you
well,
know what I mean? Whatever they did didn't work. And that's
right,
usually not good when you're left over from the old guy's management team. Like, I'm just
right.
saying. And
I
they're about to
agree.
draft him. I'm really asking, are you going to allow Mike Elias to do this job? And
Right.
then I saw him fire the manager. You called it, was it scapegoating or whatever the word
Yeah.
you used
Yeah.
for it?
Yeah.
And then he hid for 3.5 days. There's
Right.
nothing about this that I'm like, I'm not. I don't like the smell of any of this, Joel.
Well, you were talking about Rubenstein, and I agree with you that other than Cal, is there anybody in that new regime who knows jack about baseball? So he's got to leave Elias alone because the draft's coming up. You can't fire your GM a month for, but he better draft some pitchers. But and you probably have to give Elias the off season to correct this. The thing about Elias that I'm trying to figure out is I know there was that story that came out in the off season about, and there was controversy who wrote it or whatever, that he's trying to build a team without spending a lot of money. And I'm thinking, well, Rubenstein said, go ahead and spend some money. And, we spent some money, just not the right type of
Well,
money
they
on the right
almost doubled the
people.
payroll.
Right. But
Certainly haven't doubled the output if they're bean counters, and they are.
Right, but when you looked at his off season, maybe there's some credence to that. And then you start thinking, okay, he's a good builder. But again, though, we're looking at these guys who aren't panning out the way they're all just falling apart. And here's the thing: if you look at the guys he's drafted, Cowser, even Stowers, Mayo, Kierstead, the two guys that are big hitters down in the minors now, Beavers, and I can't remember the other guy, Judge
Sayo.
Fabian. Well, Basayo, we don't know as much about, but they were all high power, big strikeout guys. And then you always read Matt Blood, the scouting director, saying, oh, we have the system to correct that. Dudes, it ain't working. And these guys are like going backwards. Okay, let's get to Adley a little bit. I looked at film of him last year from April, May, and June, and then in September. And you're right. Back injuries, hand injuries, those are debilitating injuries for any of us. But a pro athlete, it's tough. And you're never going to get Adley to say anything because he goes to the Derek Jeter school of interviewing, give them something but say absolutely nothing. Maybe that's competitive advantage. But I looked at those films of him in September. Remember, both right and left. He's fallen backwards on his back leg like he doesn't have any strength anymore. He's trying to lift everything, and he has that horrible second half. Okay. And the only quote that was useful to me from him the entire rest of the season was after they were eliminated. He says, I have to get my body right. So was he hurt? Was he overweight? Did he need to eat better? Who knows? He's never going to tell us, and neither will the team. Comes to spring training, has a great spring training, but as we know, spring training numbers don't mean anything. I mean, said hit 150 in spring training, and look how he came out of the gates. I went to a spring training game March 18th, so I always try to go late in spring so I can see what looks like the real team. That was the game. Povich pitched 5 no-hit innings against pretty much Toronto's A team. Adley homers, Mountcastle crushes 2 home runs, one over to center field eye, batter's
That was
eye.
pretty much what happened on opening day when Luke and I went to Toronto. It was just like boom,
Right,
boom, boom, 6 home runs and Rutschman,
right.
the whole deal, right? It
What?
felt like, here we go. This is going to be something, huh?
Yeah, the second homer Ryan hit that day went over Boog's barbecue into the parking lot. I mean, he's crushing it. And then you see what happens. So you can't put anything into spring training numbers other than hopefully guys are healthy. And Adley seems to be the, opening day Adley. He always hits a couple homers, knocks in 5. I mean, exaggerating, but he always has a great opening day. he looks a little better at the plate. But the other thing that went haywire last year was when he got called up in 22, even though he didn't hit for the first 20 or 25 games, he had an advanced batting eye that really impressed me. He walked a lot, he contributed. Then he started getting his hits. You know, I'm not a big analytics guy, and I know Luke buys into that somewhat. I don't care that his hard hit rate is pretty good right now. There's a lot of green grass out there. Hit the ball hard, and like Chuck Thompson said, the breaks will even out over the course of a season. There's something going on with him. Now, the other day, he struck out 3 times when he came back from a concussion, and I'm thinking maybe he shouldn't have come back so soon. So I'll give him a pass
I
on
just think
that.
there's a press on him in a general sense, and then
Could
he
be,
did take the ball. I mean, he's
could
a
be.
guy that doesn't have a lot of rope right now
Right.
in regard to his career. I mean,
You're
this
right.
isn't a blip, a week, a month. It's over 2 seasons. It's a full season and a body of work now
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is going to cost him a job, cost him opportunities, and certainly the Basayo thing and coming
Yeah.
along and where they are. I mean, we went from a year ago, Mr. Moneybags is buying the team, and we're going to give Rutschman 400 million, we're going to give Henderson 500 million, and we're going to sign him up for a million just to trying to figure out. Holiday might be the best player of the whole bunch of them. Westberg might be the best player of the whole bunch of them, and he hadn't played at all.
I love Westberg. I mean, I hope he comes back healthy and well. He was the best they had with runners in scoring position. He gives you a good at bat. He doesn't strike out as much. And he's a gamer. He reminds me of the old time guys. Going back to Adley for a sec, if he wasn't a 1-1, he may have been sent back for a reset. And a lot of time, look at Kierstead. I mean, he doesn't deserve to be in the majors right now. I mean, he's making mistakes on the bases. He bumps into, and he and Mateo in the outfield is like Alphonse and Gaston. It's
Well,
a
then they
clown
bring
show.
Mayo up and he's in the middle of a brawl with another last place team. And it's like, what the hell are you guys doing?
I know. I mean, I know what he was trying to do. Create interference, but it was so obvious.
It was
It's
Bush League, and now
it
we're
was.
emptying benches with the White Sox in
Yeah.
last place. You want me to throw down and get injured in a fight when I'm hit 206? I mean, just all of it.
Let's
Just
go to
just
Ruben.
all of it. I mean that's Tony Mansolino is their manager. That's not the way they drew this up. They're working on an interim
Right.
manager too. I'm wondering where we're going to get some sort of solidification. And I'll hear you. By the way, the draft is July 13th because somebody
Yeah.
asked me that the other day. July 13th is the draft. So
Right.
think All-Star week. They're trying to sort of group it all together and whatever.
Yeah.
But it is it's not a time to be firing your management team. That's for
No,
sure.
you can't. Okay, so I've asked you this before. What is Cal's involvement? Because
I
like I,
don't know.
because like I said, he's asked Luke. I mean, because he's got to be the only one that I see in that new group that knows anything about baseball, and he could be guiding Rubenstein regarding what to do with Elias. We don't know any of that, but
I
it's
have no
it's a
idea
cluster.
how involved Cal Ripken is or isn't, and no one has been forthcoming. And that's a real problem in a
Yeah,
general sense with these people that own the team. And like I keep going on and on. No one came out to really. There was no David Rubenstein or Katie Griggs representing themselves at Jim Henneman's funeral last week, and that was pointed out to
seriously.
me as well. And I'm
Whoa,
thinking
man.
like Jim Henneman's written more about your baseball franchise than any human on the planet. And um, even if you didn't know him, you would build trust with people who did. And we're a community here, man. And you're down in Florida. By the way,
Yeah,
Joe Poiley's our guest. He is an author, and we'll get to the Tom Maddie thing because it's a Father's Day thing and a great gift.
right.
If you like books and you're an old Colts person, you're an old Baltimore person. Tom Maddie transcends the Colts. I mean, for crying out loud, he's Baltimore and Ohio State and a whole bunch of other things. But for me with this ownership and what I had hoped the next thing that would come after Angelos would be. It
Right,
wouldn't be about making fake videos about how involved you are and funnies with Cal Ripken this time last year. And this
right.
time this year, you're in last place and Cal's hiding, you're hiding. The
Yeah,
general manager takes 3.5 days to answer questions, takes questions in Milwaukee. It's chicken shit. I mean, it's Bush League, and they're in last place, and the stadium's empty.
Right.
And here's where the rubber meets the road, Joel. And this has nothing to do with Nasty Nestor or radio or this or that. This has to do with me being at Costas and up at Greenmount Station, where I get real Oriole fans, and
Yeah.
out at the pool in Vegas, where it was more of a country club set, but I get real Oriole fans who fund this, whether it's skyboxes, sponsorships, advertising on mass, and whatever it
Right.
is. My buddy, who I had crabs with last week, has
Mhm.
enough money that he can give him 2 grand and buy tickets and do an account. He doesn't buy Ravens tickets. He's
Right.
off the grid. He's much more like you, collecting that beautiful Oriole banner you have behind you and a Colts banner and
Mhm.
collecting Brooks Robinson cards and whatnot, right? But
Right.
he loves sports. He's just sort of like wasn't going to give Angelos money, went down once or twice a year when
Right.
he wanted to go, right? Whatever, but got into this Birdland thing and
Yeah.
he gave him money, right? He's like, hey, I want to get in. I want them to have the money to sign Adley Rutschman.
Right.
I want to be a stakeholder. I'm going to be a good community dude.
Mhm.
And I think he might have done it through business. I'm not even sure. I think he did. I have
Right.
to. I'm going to ask him. I'm not going to out him, but
Right.
this could be anybody. This could be anybody in my audience that
Right.
said, "Yeah, I'm going to give him $800, $1,000, be in the Gold Club." I don't even know what it is, but
Right.
you give them the money, and then you go in your app and you basically just buy tickets off of the money you've given them, and
Mhm.
for that you get the discounts, you get the cheaper this, you get the reward point, all of that, right?
Right.
You gave him a couple grand,
Yeah.
and now he doesn't want to use it. And he's watching all of the lack of all of this, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
just saying, what are you people? He sees how they're treating me, and he's my friend.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, I thought that these new people would be like human. They have
Are,
not been. They have not.
are you,
I mean, the general manager hid for 3.5 days
I know.
from answering questions. I mean, that's so Bush League that I don't even, but it's the same. Angelo's got away with that. I mean, like, with the stuff they've gotten away with for 30 years is why the place is empty. And the
Right.
30 seconds that I had with the owner, I
Mhm.
spent my whole night. I went out to Beth DeFillo. I stood and I did the whole deal
Yeah.
and waited to the end to have 30 seconds to him. And I
Mhm.
told him the crux of the whole thing if he hired me. There's been a lot of trauma here.
Oh
Been
yeah.
a lot of trauma for Baltimore sports fans as I look at your Colts banner behind you.
Yeah.
And anytime I talk to the Rick Vaughns and the Charles Steinbergs, or if Jim Henneman were here, any of those people
Mhm.
in the 80s, you were here, you were in the press box in 85 and 86. You thought they were moving the team to DC.
Oh, we were hearing quite a bit of that. Yeah.
Grown-ups believe that. So for all that we lost the Bullets. I mean, you mentioned Jim Henneman. Jim Henneman was the PR director of the Bullets when they left Baltimore,
I
71,
know.
72, right?
Yeah.
So, like, all these pieces come together, and if you have no emotional intelligence as the owner, you have no emotional intelligence as the team president coming in from Raleigh and Atlanta and
Yeah.
Seattle, and you don't know anybody here, and you're trying to build trust with the community,
Mhm.
that's what's lacking is trust. And my
Yeah.
buddy gave them 2 grand on a credit card, and he ain't gonna give it to him again. And that's,
Mhm.
man, that's really. I've waited 30 years to give these people my money. I swear to
Right.
God, you know this, Joel. I went to the Whistler, Chris Ullman last year, and I'm like, I'm dying to get back in and like
Mhm.
let do the right thing, be
Right.
the right kind of people, do the right thing, and they haven't done that. They haven't done that. They're not even doing that when they're firing their manager. Like
Yeah.
it's very very problematic for me. It's very concerning for me.
What you said surprised me. You're telling me nobody from the organization was at Henny's
I
funeral?
think Bill Stetka was there because he and Henneman were
Yeah.
blood brother. I'm talking about from the top. I'm talking
No,
about like
that's what I mean.
there were no
That's
Jim Palmer was there, right? You know what I
yeah,
mean?
but
But like
yeah,
I'm
but
talking about like management ownership. Like no, the man, Tony. I didn't see Tony Manzolini. I'm not doing roll call on a funeral. I'm just saying like
no,
he
but
was the Orioles. I mean, Jim Henneman was the Orioles.
that's the point though. That surprised me that you told me that. And it just adds another layer to yeah, I mean, I hope this isn't another Angelo's situation, but you're right. It's been over a year now
I
and
haven't
what do
seen
we see?
signs of. By the way, you said you hope it's not another Angelos situation. The Angelos lieutenants are still in charge.
You're right. Bader, I know, I know.
Bader, Jennifer Grandal, they're still running. I mean, Mike Elias is an Angelos uh,
Higher.
business representative, right? Like
Yeah.
literally. So I'm wondering. That's why I don't think he's long for wear. And if that's just what my tea leaves would tell me. But
Yeah,
all the Angelos people are still here and they're still
yeah,
running things, important things like the television network, really important things.
yeah. And like you've said, the one thing that they did not expect was for the product on the field to go south. And especially because that's all they had in terms of the marketing, since they weren't really getting that involved in the community, from what I'm understanding. And now they don't know how to fix it. Um, I mean, as far as the team and the product, I mean, the one thing about Manzolino I have liked a little bit is at least he gives his pitchers a little more rope, but he still seems like Luke said, like a junior varsity manager. Like he didn't expect to get it. He's just happy to be there, but he seems to be growing into the role. I mean,
Well, they won
personally,
some games. I mean, they're not winning them the way we want them, the runners in
right,
scoring position and all that, but they're getting better
right,
pitching.
right, and that's always going to be the key. And if that can continue on a positive trend, they can maybe break 500 or get to 500. But like you said, I don't think there's enough of it for them to get back in this thing. I mean, they were 9-18 in May, and until the end of May, God, they hardly won anything. They're not going to go 18-9 in June. They're just not. And the other thing people tend to forget is, okay, it'll be great when Kaiser gets back, although he strikes out too much. Westy. I was never a fan of O'Neill. I hate these muscle bound geeks, man, because baseball is about flexibility and quickness. And, you're never going to get more than 100 games out of O'Neill. Now, if he hits 25 dingers the rest of the season, then correct me and I'm wrong. But the point I'm getting at is, as these guys come back, they still need to ramp up a little bit. So they're not, in most cases, they're probably not just going to make the lineup look better, and all of a sudden, we're going to be the team that we were the first 3 months of last year. So look, we've both seen pennant races decided late. So I'm not saying anything's out of the realm of possibility. I remember when Steinberg was talking last week about the 74 season. They were the hitless wonders. They were 2 games under 500 on Labor Day. But look at their pitching staff. I mean, McNally was near the end, but he could still pitch. Cuellar was still winning 20 games. Palmer was in his prime. Rudy May was pretty good. I don't remember who some of the other Bob Reynolds. Yeah, they pitched a week's worth of shutouts. That's not going to happen with this crew. So, yeah, things can happen. We've seen. I go back to '64, the fighting Phillies, 5 up with 10 to play, and they lose on the last day of the season because Gene Malk blows out his pitching staff. I mean, anything's possible, but I just don't see a clean, crisp product that where they can even run off more than 3 or 4 in a row. Now, they take 2 or 3 from Seattle, that would surprise me because I think Seattle's a better club than they are right now.
Well, look, as comprised in February, if we would look at them and say Westberg wouldn't have an at bat this year, Kowser wouldn't be a factor this year, Rutschman
Right,
would stink this year,
right.
you O'Neill would be a problem. Just Kerstedt would be unproductive. Mayo wouldn't be here yet, and when he is, he's starting fights.
Yeah.
Sanchez, the money they spent on him, no bueno.
Oh,
Like just down the list,
yeah.
Holiday and O'Hearn, a great story. O'Hearn, I mean, where he is in his career and what he went through as a failed first round draft pick.
Yeah, I love him.
Holiday showing all the lights that, quite frankly, Rutschman showed 2 years ago, right? And that Henderson showed as an MVP candidate 2 years ago. So
Yeah,
they have these pieces, and if
right.
they could put together health, I will hear all along. If Mike Elias is pleading for his job at the end of this with Rubenstein, the
Mhm.
excuse would be my pitchers all got hurt, my hitters all got hurt, you know, I was lousy about signing free agents and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
we had young talent that got injured, not other than Rutschman, not failed. And like to your point, he might be injured as well.
right.
It has been an unbelievable spate of injuries. And the sport itself, if you're identifying it from the outside statistically, like
Yeah,
David Rubenstein would be inclined to do, all these guys' arms falling off. And
well, that's
believe me, it's not
epidemic.
lost on Jim Palmer. when he talks about it in regard to all of those teams that made you the Orioles fan that you are, Joel Poiley, and made me the fan I am, 60s, 70s, 80s,
Oh,
um, all those pitchers you mentioned, they all pitched. I mean, I remember Flanagan getting hurt in that crazy basketball game in the offseason.
yeah.
And, I'm trying to think of some freak injuries where players, I remember Louis broke his thumb or finger late in his career sliding into second base. He was a much old 71, 72 Red
Okay.
Sox late in his career. And he
Right.
missed, like, if you look on the back of his baseball card, you'll see he only played 90 games or something.
Yeah.
But if you, on the back of baseball cards, you can always look and see how many games people played, how many at bats they had. You don't build Hall of Fame careers in the hot tub. You just don't. And
No.
that's part of, to your point, pliability, flex. You don't hit like Tony Gwynn if you can't play. And
Oh,
if you can't play every day. And
oh,
even though he was always sort of out of shape and doughy and whatever, and I talked to Tony Gwynn about that at the end of his career. I did a long sit down. You want to listen to something cool, Joel? Go listen to
mhm,
Tony Gwynn and I cut it up. I asked
right.
him about his weight, like candidly, like
Yeah.
in a way that I don't think you could ask players that stuff anymore. But I asked him about that, and he, hey man, I got 3,000 hits because I played every day. Like
Right.
period. I was ready to
Right.
play. So you say whatever you want about me, but I played 600 at bats every year, all the time.
Right.
That's the pathway to any Hall of Fame career in anything. And it's sort of in load management in the NBA. Meanwhile, I got Ovechkin coming back to score 900,
I know.
right?
And the thing is, the way look, I know I sound like an old curmudgeon, but
Well, we are.
the game was so much better when your cousin played. I love Louis, great player, man. And but if you look at the back of their cards, all of them, Brooks, Boog, even Boog, who struck out a lot. I think he struck out 100 times, maybe once in his career. The game now is just home run derby, home run or nothing. I saw an interview a couple years ago. It may have been Palmer interviewing Singy when Singy was still broadcasting for the Yankees. Singy said, "We were embarrassed when we struck out. You would hang your head when you'd walk past Earl, especially if you got called out on a third strike. Now strikeouts are okay. Look, I'll take a hard hit double play. You know why? Because the Orioles and a lot of teams do, but we're just talking about the O's. They strike out so much. Think about this. That is inaction in a game. You strike out 10, 12, 15 times. The defense doesn't even need their gloves, parenthetically speaking, but you know where I'm at here. The Orioles don't create any action to get you out. There was a game last week. It was a game Povich pitched and he blew up in the fifth inning against the Cardinals. They were leading 3-0. Said laid down a bunt, which he should do so much more of, he and Mateo. The pitcher gets it, and no matter how much pitcher fielding practice these guys do in the spring, most pitchers can't field their position because they're not used to it. Palmer, Musina, they were the exceptions. Cardinals pitcher, I think it was Miles Nicholas, gets it, bounces the throw to first. O'Hearn is able to score from second. Said got his bunt hit. Why he and Mateo could avoid slumps all year. Think about this. If Said would get 5 more bunt hits in a month, that's 30 more hits in a year. Instead of hitting 230, he could hit 270. And for him, he might command a hell of a lot more money in the offseason. So I'm just you can tell I'm kind of fed up with the game itself now. But the Orioles are in that mix where you got to look at how they play. They don't create enough action for the other team to even try and make it hard on them to get them out.
Well, the White Sox wanted to throw it around like the Bad News Bears
Oh
over the
God,
weekend. But
yeah, yeah.
hey, let's get to your book here. It is
Okay,
Father's Day. Joe Poiley is here, author and a friend to Tom Maddie. Give the little synopsis of how this all happened because the book's a couple of years old, but still great storytelling. And
okay,
and everybody here loved Tom. And I remember when Tom passed, me telling you that story about him coming up to me and
yeah,
out at the Ravens facility in right in front there where Tony Likas was underneath the
yeah,
Art Modell's thing and saying to me,
yeah.
"Hey man, people calling the radio station. They want an old Colt to come sit with them. Give them my number."
Right.
Tom Maddie was a special guy, dude.
It's in the book, and that's when I contacted you. The book hasn't been out a year. It came out last August, so this is the first Father's Day it'll be around. I mean,
See,
if
then
you're
I knew I was the reason I reached you. It feels like your book's been out 5 years, but it
well, you've
hasn't been.
had me on so much.
All right,
God
I'm
bless you.
sorry. All right, so the book's new. I feel the
No,
same.
that's
I've
great.
got John Miller on this week too. He wrote the Earl Weaver
The
book.
Weaver book.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
by the way, somebody came to me the other day and was raving about how great the book was, right? I was at Henneman's funeral. He's like, you got to read John Miller's unbelievable book on Earl Weaver.
I got to
And,
get it.
and
I've
I've been
read
having him on for
excerpts of
5 years too, and the book just came out like 5 minutes ago, but it feels like it's been
Yeah.
out for a while. So anyway,
But yeah, I would think this would make a great Father's Day gift for people up there to, love the old Colts, remember Tom. Yeah, I cherish that relationship, even though it ended up only being a couple months. And like I've told you, I still keep in touch with Judy, Maddie. And yeah, but what's really been interesting for me, and it's made me feel good, have been the people that maybe were outside of Baltimore that picked it up and they contacted me and said, I didn't know that. I didn't know how great a player he was. I didn't know the connection to the city. I yeah, I kind of remembered the Colts left, but I didn't remember all the madness with Ursay. I learned a lot. So, if you lived a lot of that, that's fine, but it'll bring back a lot of good memories, some painful memories. But we love those old guys. That's why I wore this shirt
there
in
you
honor of
go.
being on today. And yeah, it would make a nice Father's Day gift. Uh, yeah. So you have a great voice.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I
I
mean,
used to be able to play that on the kazoo.
no, but I've appreciated anybody up there that bought it. John Zeman's been great. I know he's pushing it with a lot of people. So yeah, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. It's out there.
Last man standing.
But when
Joel
you call it
Poiley is our
up,
guest.
just make
Yes,
sure you put in Tom's name because there are other books out there titled Last Man Standing.
there you
So
go. All right, make sure you get the right book.
exactly.
What the other last man stand? You're gonna make me Google it. Joe Poiley's here. It's Poiley. He is down in Tampa Bay, via Baltimore. He is one of us. Was a sports writer here and became a sports writer in Tampa. He is now a recovering author and struggling mightily Orioles fan
Yeah.
down there. I had Vaughn on last week. Just talking about in your area what the Tampa
Yeah.
Bay Lightning have become there
Oh,
in
gotcha.
regard to a brand. It really, I mean, for you being down there, if I would have ever told you 25 years ago when you went down there that hockey would own Tampa Bay, no one would believe it. And people here don't. But the future of that baseball team down there is sticky, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, look, the Bucks have won what, four straight divisional titles. This is a hockey town, and it's because of ownership. They treat the fans well. The pregame and during the game presentation is wonderful, and they're a winning team. Consistently. You're not going to win the Stanley Cup every year. The baseball situation's a mess. I'm sure you went into that with Rick. Um, yeah, you got this group now in Orlando that's wanting to bring the team over there. I think the biggest hope here, and Rick may have mentioned this, DeBartolo, who used to own the 49ers, and Joe Malloy, who was part owner, I think, with the Yankees at some point. Apparently, they're trying to put together a group to buy the Rays from Stuart Sternberg and keep them here. But I mean, this whole season's a joke. The Yankees come here during the regular season to play, and they're the visiting team at basically their stadium, Steinbrenner Field. But what was so funny about it was they had to use the visitors' locker room, and they spent millions of dollars last off season upgrading the home locker room, and they couldn't even use it when they were in town playing the Rays. I mean, this whole thing's a mess. I mean, but supposedly they're going to be back in the Trop next year, but they're spending a lot of money on that. Um, Sternberg, the owner, lost me a couple years ago when he and Manfred proposed that split season with Montreal. I mean, that was a direct slap in the face of everybody down here.
Yeah, and the people in Jacksonville accepting that their team's playing in London a couple days. Like,
Come
I
on.
don't know, man. I like we've just really lost the ball of what community is and what these teams are. And the
Yeah,
Lightning in your community have won the hearts, and the baseball team that's been there longer, trying harder, they've won as well and had Joe Madden and did all of
yeah,
that. And the thing about Tampa was you say it would work there. Kids in Florida can play baseball 12, 13 months a year if they want to, right?
right.
And hockey wouldn't work because it's too hot. And Florida's playing three, four more games here this week down there in the
Right.
Stanley Cup Finals. Stanley Cup Finals 6 years in a row in the state of Florida, right?
Exactly. So it comes back to what you're saying. I mean, if you treat the fans right, you give them a quality product, and you get involved in the community, even if you come in from Seattle or wherever, um, it can happen no matter where.
Joel, I've
So,
shared this picture here because my wife and I went down and I have Barry Trotz coming on in a little
oh
while,
yeah,
actually.
there's Jim.
Trotz is
Yeah.
coming on. When the Caps won the Cup back in 18, this is May 11th of 2018. My wife got sick as a dog. She was visiting her family down there.
Really.
It was Mother's Day weekend, right? May 11th. We went down. I think this was game 5 or 7. I think it's no, it's one of the early games maybe because they
Yeah.
won game 7 down there to go to the Cup Finals. And
Right.
but my wife had a front row seat, and everybody behind her is wearing Lightning
Like,
jerseys, and she had the greatest time.
yeah.
But that arena was electric, and that was a playoff game, and we went down
Mhm.
together. We had the best time, and we got out on the plaza and drinking beer, and there's bands, and it's just a big giant tailgate party downtown
Yeah.
Tampa.
Yeah.
I've been there for Springsteen, and I've been there for the Eagles, and I've been there for Lightning games.
Right.
But that's what when I talk about owning a community, the
Yeah.
Orioles can't rely on old school Joel and Brooks Robinson and the
Yeah.
streaming package. And I know good baseball is the foundation of that, but
Yeah.
it's not. And keep trying to tell all my sports heads it doesn't begin with that. It begins with people in the front office who
Right.
have a vision and a strategy for where the money's coming from, for the humans that are pulling out their credit card, who
Right.
are the ATMs who are going to support this.
Right.
And I don't know why all look, I'll show you this picture again. I don't know why all of these people back here were paying $200 that night to sit up on the roof and watch hockey at a playoff game. But I
Yeah.
know one thing, the Lightning weren't selling them on Gordie Hull or Bobby Orr or Phil Esposito, even though I saw him that night
Yeah.
and gave him a hug that night. He was alive and well. And Espo and
I
I
love it.
got it on because Ubriaco and he were from the Sioux.
That's
They're
right.
from
Yeah.
the Sioux. So
Yeah.
when you talk hockey with those guys from the Sioux,
Phil's great. Phil.
Espo's pinching my cheeks before I left. Once I started telling him Ubriaco took care of
Really.
me. So, but that was the hockey community, and that's what
Right.
Ubriaco would say to me: "You love my game. I'm going to teach you my game." And
Yeah.
that's what they went down to Tampa and did. They taught everybody their game
Hmm.
the way the Skipjacks wanted to do it here, the Clippers wanted to do it
Right.
here, and they failed. The
Yeah.
Orioles made it work here. The
Hmm.
Colts, I'm looking at your Colts thing, they made it work here until they started mistreating people when the Ursays came in. And
Yeah.
I just want the Rubenstein thing to be better than it is. And
Sure.
I don't know that I like this right now, Joel. Any of it, really.
Go back to Jerry Hofberger. Go back to Carol Rosenblum. I mean, it's in the book. One of the first things Rosenblum told Tom when they drafted him was, "You got to treat the fans right, and they'll treat you right, and they'll support us. But don't ever forget they are your bread and butter." And you're right. I mean, we haven't seen it, well, we up there for a long time. And it plays well in any community. Like you look at St. Louis. I mean, they've always respected their fans. You don't win every year, but they have a long history there. And owner, you're right. Look, it's fun talking about Brooks, Frank, Jim. That's a long time ago, dude. And you've got to continue to do that. And it really just seemed like
They
after eight.
cut Palmer's games
What is the deal with that? So that wasn't
against
Jim.
his will. That's
Yeah,
what the deal is. I don't know. Call Greg Bader if you can get him on the phone.
yeah,
He runs
I
Mass.
read that, but I didn't see anything from Jim. So it was against Jim's will. That stinks, man. If that's what they did, and that's just why, because they're paying them too much. So I love Ben McDonald. Don't get
When
me
I
wrong,
heard the news,
but
I thought Jim's 80 and wants to cut down. That is
that's
not
what I
true.
thought.
That is
That's
not true. I would be lying to you
okay.
if I reported to you that Jim Palmer wanted his time cut. He did not want his time cut. They
That's
cut him.
see,
You don't want Jim Palmer doing your games?
yeah.
Then you don't love the Orioles.
Yeah, I mean, hell, Jim should be the pitching coach, but I know he doesn't want to get that involved, and he'd probably get disgusted working with those guys.
All right,
But
look, listen, they're
that's
still going to
that's
be
me.
in last place in a couple weeks. I'll reach back to you at football season here, and
Yeah,
I hope
go
to get down to
Ravens,
Tampa and enjoy some sunshine down there and see some of my buddies like Pete Williams and Rick Vaughn, everybody
and
down
look me
there.
up, man. Yeah,
I had a good time when I was there. My mother-in-law's down there, so maybe I get down there and get some of my favorite turducken down there on the Tamiami Trail.
there you
He
go.
is Joel Poiley. See, I know my way around Sarasota a
Uh-huh.
little bit. You know, I was hoping that they were going to be nice to me, Joel, and I could come down there and get a condo with you every March and kind of hang out the way Jerry Coleman does and just run around and act
Yeah,
like a baseball goof and do my show and whatever. But I don't know. I was really hoping after Angelos, all of that
right,
would be my destiny. I could be an Aparicio again.
right.
But that's not been what I've been greeted with, and it's very, very unfortunate. Not just for me, but for my audience. And I know you're one of them, and I love you and I appreciate that, man.
And I appreciate you having me on promoting the book and
Hold it
letting
up
me
again. Hold up your book. It's Father's
and
Day. Let's sell some books, damn it. Let's go.
and letting me vent, you know, because I'm a fan, and what's happening with the O's really, really hurts.
Well, when you start
So,
naming a 74 rotation and get Rudy May in there, man. I mean, Torres wasn't here yet. Holtzman, none of that had happened
right,
yet. But I mean, so I'm going to give you this piece before I go without, and I hope I don't cry when I say it to you. But I attended two funerals last Thursday. Jim Henneman in the afternoon, and I was close with Jimmy, 40 years ago, and I hadn't talked to
yeah,
him much in recent times. But my rock
yeah.
star buddy, Mike Peters, died from the alarm,
I've heard of
and
him. Yeah,
it was the most beautiful funeral I have ever. I couldn't stop sobbing, and I sobbed three different times because I had to stop it on the stream to go to Henneman's funeral, and I
right.
wound up watching it later at night over a margarita, and I caught the dust in the air all over again. But the
Yeah,
beginning of his funeral, it said, "In life, you find your people." This was the minister said this
right.
in Wales, and in that Welsh, you find your people, and I'm like, you find your people.
Yeah,
So the Orioles, it's who we are. I'm an Aparicio. You're a baseball head. We
yeah,
find our people, right?
exactly.
Tom
It,
Maddie, we find our people,
I
right?
know we got to go, but I've thought about this. We could have worked together under John because you were already there when were you there when they folded or had you left?
I
This is
had
eight
left. I left in May. They folded in May. I left in January of
because I remember
'86.
I told you he had interviewed me like 6 months before they folded. So you would have been the young buck, I would have been the young vet, and we would have kicked some reporting tail, brother.
Hearst would have funded it.
Yeah,
Rosebud. All right.
Rose.
He is Joel Poiley.
Yeah,
If you can go get some Citizen Kane, you got plenty of time on your hands if you're watching the Orioles out on the
right,
West Coast as well.
yeah.
Joel's written the book, Last Man Standing, on Tom Maddie. Please go buy it anywhere good books are sold. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. I wish they're in first place, but they're in last place.
Thank you,
Change
brother.
thyselves, Orioles. Fix this so we can talk better things in the future.